What is up, everybody? It is me, Duke Farley, at it again here on Lost at Sea. And I am unfortunately joined here this evening by the third person eliminated from season 2, Kris. What is up,
Hi.
brother?
Yeah, I just had to run it back in the Ascendance and follow suit with what I do best, which is bring chaos energy and have very unfortunate events happen to me. But I will say it calls for very exciting TV, and I live for it. So now we're here, and all I can say is that I'm glad to be here. I'm a big fan of the podcast. I've watched every single episode. I think that your content is actually really great. Like, it reminds me of like Rob Has a Podcast, if you know him, like that kind of energy. And I just want to say kudos to you and the podcast and everyone who's been featured. It's been nothing but great episodes thus far.
Wow, I appreciate that. A little Rob Has a Podcast reference. I love it. I love it. Um, But Kris, let's get into your journey here in Ascendance, your second journey, but your first live experience here. I wanted to start off by asking you, you played the online org, and there was a couple people from your season in this live game, being Erica and Drew. I know, I was on production for that. You were closely aligned with Erica, whereas Drew was on kind of an opposite alliance. How was it seeing them back in this game, and were there people that you were drawn to?
Okay, right off the bat, you mentioned my relationships with Erica and Drew perfectly. Erica and I were in an alliance, a couple alliances, and I just love her energy. So when I saw her, I was like, yes, like I know I can trust her. She brings such good energy to not only me, but like to most people around her. She's so great with how she can just like her personality is just radiating, and I love Erica so much. Heart, love you, Erica. Drew, now we weren't aligned on my original season at all, um, and it's weird because we would talk to each other like we were, because we were both playing the game, and I was just like, I know what you're up to, Drew. Like you cannot like off the calls, because we would, like in Skype, and I don't know why, but Skype orgs, you just call everybody that you want to talk to. So it was always like, oh, Drew, let's get on the chat and be like, I love you so much. I mean, I do love Drew. I love Drew so much. But during our original season, it was like rivalry, even though I don't know, Drew kicked my butt. But we don't talk about that. Um, Fast forward to the actual live game. Um, I see Drew and I'm like, yes, original season, homie. He got me. Hopefully, I can get him back. Not, I mean, okay, so me and Drew, I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but me and Drew, like, went together the first day and said, no matter what happened in our like original game, we just want to make sure that we're cool with each other and we have each other's backs. And 100% I would have like had his back had I lasted longer in the game. So, seeing both Drew and Erica there, I was stoked.
So those two were obviously people that you had played with before. Was there anybody else that you had known going into the game, from anything else, I guess?
There was a few people that I knew from previous org experiences. I was playing a lot of orgs back in the day. I'm kind of on retirement right now until
Same.
I come back. It's just orgs just drain you, and I need to get all my energy and essence back before I can share it back to the rest of the world. But with that being said, I have known Jodalee from playing the Totem Pole, which is now called the Penthouse mini orgs. And I played a couple of minis, and he was, I believe, Jodalee. He wasn't named as Jodalee. Wasn't he Lemon? Or am I like confusing someone else?
Potentially. I know that he went by a different name at one point, but I'm not sure
Uh,
exactly if it was Lemon, but it could be.
he might be okay. So seeing Jodie, I was like, he's Lemon, but he didn't confirm. So please, Jodie, confirm if you're Lemon or not. The world wants to know. But I saw
Leave a comment.
Jodie. I saw Jodie, and I was like, oh, I've played the Penthouse with you, and then being in the Penthouse minis, I've actually played one of the only Penthouse minis when it was called the Penthouse with Wes. Wes was in the mini, so Wes coming in, we made it to the finale during that mini, and so we lasted quite a while. And seeing Wes there was kind of surreal because I've applied to his shows, but seeing Wes there was really exciting because it was an opportunity for our relationship to grow in a different game. So who else did I know? There was Wes, Jodie, Marvin. Marvin's been around in the org community. A lot of people know Marvin. And Kennedy. So coming into Ascendance live season 2 was right after Bigger Brother, which is a very popular grand org hosted by Adam, and it's such a wonderful game. If you guys don't know, and if you guys don't know what orgs are, I don't know if I am allowed to plug, but I'm shamelessly plugging. And playing that intense game, I knew Kennedy. Kennedy was in that game, and we weren't really aligned with each other. Unfortunately, there was a moment in time where I had to vote her out, but I felt so bad voting her out that I did not tell the truth. And I usually tell the truth always because it's one of my it's one of my mantras playing one of these games, whether it be live or orgs, is to try and tell the truth most of the time if you can help it, because it will save you a lot of trouble. You will feel a lot better about your gameplay. So I felt really bad at the time for doing that to Kennedy. So seeing her coming back, I saw it as maybe a moment where I can redeem myself and we could work together and slay the game together. If I've missed anyone else, I do apologize. There were a few people that I haven't had an org experience or any other type of experience with. However, nothing strong or crazy. There were some best friends in that game, and we will get into that.
I'm sure we will. Before we get into this latest episode where, you obviously eliminated, I wanted to go back and ask you about the previous round. Number 1, you were in the first 3 eliminations, right? So you were vulnerable for all 3. So
it's the green team curse. Shout outs to Eddie. Edmund, so I was watching that episode with Eddie, and he said, "Is the green team?" I jumped out of my seat because he was not telling a singular lie. The green team is cursed, and I'm just gonna hold my tongue on that. The green team is cursed. But yes, I faced the vote unfortunately 3 times, and I did not survive. 3 strikes and you're out in Ascendance apparently. So
you faced the vote 3 times, and they were all joint eliminations with 12 plus people. So I was like, dude, this guy can't catch a break.
Thank you. See, this is what I mean, Duke. Before the podcast started, I said I'm bringing chaos energy and a series of unfortunate events, and a series of unfortunate events did take place when it came to me and my game. Granted, there are some things that I would have switched up, but that's just the luck of the draw.
So let's go back to the previous elimination right before you get eliminated. Eric is voted out, and you vote for Zoe in the minority here. So I wanted to ask you, first of all, what was the reason behind that vote? And then second of all, was that something that you kept to yourself throughout the rest of the game?
Okay, so when it comes to me and Zoe, shout out to Zoe, I love you. During the game, and I wanted to talk about this on the pod, this is my first org experience, or live org experience rather. So it was all very surreal. I was still kind of absorbing everything and trying to come up with the best plan that I could possibly do, because I have no idea what I'm doing. And so when I saw Zoe, I'm a very I'm based. I don't know words. I'm very energy based. I
Mhm.
feed off of energies, and Zoe's energy was very like cerebral to me. Like she is so cool. Like Zoe is a really cool person, and I was like, this. Can I curse? Am I allowed to curse?
Absolutely. Let it go.
Okay. I was so in my head I was like, this bitch is sickening. And we haven't spoken one word to each other. Like during the first day. And and I couldn't help myself but admired her from a distance. But I noticed that people were talking to her. And so I was like, dang, she is really good already, and the game has just started. So I was like, I knew that people were going to be drawn to Zoe because I was also drawn, but because the game is so fast paced and I didn't know what I was doing, I never physically had the chance to speak to Zoe a lot of the time because we were on opposite teams. And I didn't know that's how the game was going to run until it did. So as you can see from the like future when we talk more about the episode, when Zoe picks me, I was shitting my pants because we didn't have a single conversation. I knew this bitch was fierce and people liked her, and I was like, this bitch is trying to set me up to get booted out because I'm her target, which we'll talk, but it wasn't the case. I love you, Zoe, but at the time I was just going into war mode. I was like, oh my god, I can't trust her. So yes, during round 2, sorry, we didn't have that connection, and I knew that people were drawn to her. So because I couldn't have a working relationship with her in the game, I saw her as a target. So I did throw her name out there, and it caught a lot of traction. I didn't expect it to kind of trickle down and come between Eric and Zoe, even though Eric did receive a grand majority of the votes. But during the whole talking phase, it was really up in the air for a lot of the time, whether it be Zoe or Eric. So when it came down to voting, I voted for Zoe, even though I knew it was the losing vote. I didn't think anyone was going to vote for Zoe, but I did it anyway because I wanted to cause a little bit of drama and chaos and see what would that do. And at the time, I didn't think I would be the player perceived as the one to do it because I'm a very low key player, and I felt like my game would have allowed me to get away with it.
So then you ended up keeping that to yourself, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
It's interesting that Zoe ends up becoming the captain the next round. But I wanted to ask you, this season, the Scrabble figure out a word kind of competition, it had kind of like a little twist with the you could go for points with the Scrabble tiles or the longest word, which is what Zoe ends up doing. We didn't see anybody else's score, so I was wondering, did you fill out a word and did you get it?
Okay, so yes, I did get a word, but I don't remember what word I did. I think I got like 10 points, which was like not enough. But I was like very middle of the point rankings. Spelling is not my forte. Sorry. I am not. I don't know. I think my word was something like playing, and I added an S to make it longer and didn't work. So
you win some, you lose some. And so like you alluded to, Zoe picked you first overall, and I thought you had a really fun confessional there where you say, is this friendship or targeting, question mark. So in that moment you were kind of worried. You were like, is she coming after me?
yes, because of course when you get picked first, you're kind of wondering like, well, not all the time, but especially if you being picked, you're not being picked by a person that you are extremely close to. So you're being picked first by someone that you haven't had a conversation with. It draws the question, what is the motive? So especially in Ascendance or any org game rather, what is the motive behind people's actions? And so I never really brought it up, But Zoe did say, like, along through passing wherever we were, she said that she picked me first because she noticed that we haven't had a chance to talk because of the conditions of the game, um, and she wanted to build a relationship with me. And when she said that, I believed her. I actually was on Team Zoe from then on out. A little too late, but she's really good, and I gave her kudos for doing that because at the time, it was so fast paced. I thought I was being targeted by her, but that wasn't the case at all.
So she rounds out her team, right? And you're on this team with Kennedy, Marvin, and Paul. So I wanted to get your thoughts. I asked Eric and Ryan in previous exit interviews, although these have been joint eliminations, like how did you feel about just that team in general? Say you were to go to an elimination.
On my team?
Yeah, just amongst your team.
Okay, again with the fast pace. So the blue team had a lot of players I haven't had a lick of conversation with during strategy time, because strategy time is a decent part of the game. You get like 15 to 30 minutes of strategy time, depending. And when you're on the winning safe team, I haven't had that luxury. But when you're on the winning safe team, you can just go and sit in the corner and just be like, y'all have fun. I'm
Maybe look for a power or two.
Right, exactly. I'm about to drink my undisclosed energy drink and chill over there. But yes, so there was Paul. Paul and we haven't had any teamwork, no friendship prior. So I knew that Paul was a force to be reckoned with. A little bit more about Paul. I just knew that he was a very smart player. I would right off the bat, and so knowing that we haven't had a chance to have a conversation, I knew that I would probably be placed high on his target list. So if we were to fall victim to just a solo vote, I would probably be at the top of his mind. That's what I thought, at least in the game. And who else was on blue team? Do you know?
It was you, Paul, Marvin, and Kennedy.
Everyone else I was chill with. Kennedy and I were supposed to have been aligned. Kennedy. And Marvin and I, we love each other. I love Marvin, even though he's very sassy, but I can be very sassy back. So I really thought I had a chance to, be safe and kind of, use my personality, charm, and social game to get me through. So I wasn't really that concerned, but I also addressed that Paul was my weakness had it been just a solo team vote.
Understood. And so now we go into the team challenge, and I thought this was another funny parallel from your original season. We have Balloon Gate here, and I remember in season 9 there was Coin Gate, and I believe you were involved in that, right?
Yes, I led Coin Gate. That's so weird, isn't it? How Ascendance comes full circle. For people who don't know what CoinGate is, basically it's similar concept with the balloons. You give people coins, and once they drop all the coins from their fingers, they're out of the game. So of course the teams band together to give one team coins, and for some reason, so first of all, that is the best strategy to work with if you are fortunate enough to be one of the two teams to join together. If you are the team that is the victim, it sucks. But not only was I on the unfortunate team, I was the first person on the unfortunate team to be targeted. So I was just like, y'all, I have 20 quarters on my pinky, and Susie over here only has a penny. Come on! And then I dropped. But fast forward to balloons. Same thing. Balloon Gate happened. People were kind of reading into the balloons and where they fell and how often and the frequency of it. So absolutely, I feel like that game will just always do that though. Like it, especially for the people who love to read into challenges.
Yeah, 100%. So I wanted to ask you, like, were you aware that your team was joining up with the red team to go after the green team? You were aware of that during the challenge?
So I wasn't a person that brought up the idea, but as soon as I saw Paul looking in one direction and Marvin and Kenny looking the other direction, doing that with the teams, I put 1 and 2 together, and I knew what was going on.
So that ends up, you guys get out the green team right first, and then unfortunately things shake out where you guys are the second team to lose. And it's announced, another joint elimination where Erica and Keaton would be joining the elimination, but they would be safe. So there's a lot of conversations that happen in this episode that you're a part of. And we can go through each one if we wanted to.
Before we go to the vote, can I talk about something that I just wanted to say during the challenge?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Well, a couple of things. So one thing is I am so upset by my by my luck and my hijinks nature, because I was like this close to being the runner, but then I gave it to Marvin. So I could have had an advantage. I never get advantages in Ascendance, and I'm so upset. But and I feel like I'm looking for advantages around the house, but like it could be in my face and I walk right past it. Maybe, I don't know, but I'm just not fortunate with that. So unlucky me. But also, Taisha didn't get balloon. I don't know if it was edited in a way that was very clear, but I was holding on to a lot of balloons. Like, they were back to CoinGate. They were giving me. Melissa was going ham when it was between me and blue team. I don't know why I was like targeted first, but Melissa was going in with the balloon blowing, and unfortunately the wind was something fierce. And Carson in his confessional said that he was in a high altitude with no wind pressure, and I was like,
Kris has lost audio.
I knocked my mic out because Carson said that there was no airflow when 2.2 seconds later during the game you hear like nothing but the wind. And it, of course, I have a chipped tooth, so that one of my confessionals mentioned my chipped tooth, and I don't think that made it in the cut, but literally a balloon was in my mouth and I have a chipped tooth, and the wind slid it through my teeth, and that's how I lost. So I was very upset because I could have gone way longer to win the challenge. And I just shout outs to Taisha because everyone loves Taisha. They didn't want to give her a balloon, and so she had enough time to come back and kick our butts. So congrats to Taisha and Melissa for doing the damn thing and slaying that challenge. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say during the challenge.
No worries. Yes. Great points, obviously. Taisha killing it with the balloons. But now you're at this joint elimination, right? With Erica and Keaton, both safe. So going into it, now that you're aware of there's going to be 12 people, 4 of them are going to be safe. So there's 8 options. How did you feel with the, like, once you're initiating into the strategy talk portion?
So the kind of social player that I am, I kind of absorb a lot of information, and I am genuinely a very friendly person when it comes to like meeting new people and establishing connections in these games, because I want to have fun and not like really stress too much because the game is already stressful enough. So my strategy was just to be myself. I didn't expect me to be hot water so quick, and that's why um, had I have if I have the opportunity to play again, um, I would kind of play more fast. I'm more of a chill, reserved player. I intake a lot of info, and a lot of players trust me. I'm in every conversation, and it feels good when you're getting tons of information, but what really matters is the information that you're not getting. And if you're if you're being if you're being complacent because you feel like you're safe, there could be a dark spot in your game that could ultimately take you out of the game. So my advice for future players and myself included, especially in Ascendance Live, where the game doesn't last for weeks, it lasts for days. You only have 15 minutes to talk to whoever you have to talk to. So talk to everybody, especially not only the people that are up for the vote, but also the safe people, because the safe people further down the line can screw you over if they feel like they have nothing to work with. So at the moment, though, at that time, I wasn't too worried because no one was saying my name at first. I mean, we get a long time, so I would say about 75% of the conversations that we had during the strategy round, my name was never brought up. And I was like, I'm doing good. Carson's name is out there because he's out here rah-rahing about the green team being targeted, and he's waving his flag. And I'm like, okay, well, let Carson do that because I like Carson. I'm not going to actively target him, but I feel like he's painting a big target on him at the time. And then I joined another conversation, and Paul's name was mentioned. And in my head, I'm like, this is great because Carson is a very social, like he's a big social player, and people love him. So if he's taken out, that's a person that I don't have to worry about playing a similar game to mine. And Paul's a very smart and strategic person. So if he's taken out, we don't have any bonds, no connections, no conversations prior. So that would be a mega bonus for me. So I was kind of like here for the ride, joining every conversation. And again, I would not recommend that strategy. It's my first live game. And so I was really just there to make friends and kind of be there with everyone else experiencing the game experience. Not to say I didn't have any strategy, because I definitely had I had different points in the game where I was making certain moves to better my game, but at the time I didn't recognize that I was in such a I was in hot water. I didn't know that until about 75% of the conversation, and then out of nowhere, HGC is like, Kris, your name is out there. And I'm like, whoa, what? And then I start running around with my head cut off like a chicken. And I'm trying to figure out where my name is brought up, and I still don't know. No one has come up and said that they were the first persons to bring out my name. But I was actively campaigning for either Jodalee or Carson. Carson, because his name was out there, and as soon as I said Paul's name, because it was mentioned, I didn't mention it. I forgot who mentioned. I think it was Jake that mentioned Paul. Potentially, I could be wrong. But as soon as I said Paul's name in front of HGC and a group of people, they all like gasped, and I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. and so I knew Paul was a no-go, but people were actively talking about Jodalee and Carson because they were such big social threats that weren't as quiet as me. I feel like I was more quiet and reserved, and Jodalee's social game is very vibrant. I mean, he's Jodalee. Like, we love him, we stan. And Carson is very bright and energetic. So am I, but I was a little bit more reserved during our season because I didn't want to be perceived as the social threat so soon. So yeah, I don't know where I deranged, like what road I took from the point that you've given me. But yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, you kind of summarized basically the entire strategy portion of it. But there was a couple notes on conversations that you had early on that I wanted to bring up to you and ask you a question about. It seemed, and I don't know how the editing goes, whether they, piece it in and it's not like on a timeline thing, but to start off, you have a conversation with Jake, Zoe, and HGC, right? And you guys are basically discussing going after Jodely. I believe Zoe was the one that brought that up, kind of going after Jodely.
Yes.
And then moments later, I see you in a conversation with 4 or 5 other people, Kennedy, Carson, Wes, and Marvin, and I believe HGC's there. And it's tough to tell what's going on, but it seemed that you had given Carson a heads up that his name was out there from the previous conversation. So I wanted to ask you, is that accurate? Like, is that what happened? And what was the reasoning behind that, basically? If that's true.
Okay, so the question is me telling Carson that his name was out there, that being true?
Yeah, so once, there's a huge reaction from Carson and HGC once you reveal something. I don't know exactly what you said because it was tough to hear, but I was wondering what exactly that was and what
I think that was me saying that. I think that was me saying, Carson, your name is out there. I don't think that got the reaction. I think that was me saying Paul's name is also out there. Was Paul in the conversation or no?
Paul wasn't there, but you might have said that and people gasped.
Yeah, because I remember yesterday me saying, "Oh, and Paul's there," and then HD was like, well, whose name is out there? And I was like, Paul, and he was like, oh hell no, with his hair
he does that all the time. I love that about him.
And then he walks away, and I'm like, should I have not said that? And back to that question, I don't know why, but I love everyone, and I'm too loving and too friendly. So if you look at me and I know something's up and I like you and you're not on my radar, I'm gonna be like, yeah, your name's out there. Your name is. I heard your name. I heard it upstairs. I'm not gonna say who, but your name is out there, and you probably shouldn't do that, especially if you were in the hot seat. But at the time, I didn't know I was in the hot seat, so I was like, Carson, girl, baby, you have to do some work because they're out here talking about you and Paul. And so my advice is, if people are being targeted, zip your lips, be grateful, and just watch and tell your good Judies all the info, but not everybody that you like.
So yes, that's great advice, I think. There comes a point, I think, in the strategy portion where it's obvious the vote's going to come down to you and Jodely, and I think you're obviously aware of that as well because you end up voting for Jodely.
Broke my heart.
Right.
I love Jodely. Even though in my confessional I literally said, hopefully we can get Jodely out. But because
it was do or die at that point.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's where the context of that confessional came from. I hope Jodely understands that. At the beginning of that phase, Jodely was not on the top of my list, but that's just how the cards kind of fell. Honestly, knowing how the format of the game works in a live, there's so many things I would have changed about how I went about things. But one of the alliances I really wanted to form was me, HGC, Taisha, and Jodely, and Thomas. Because we were all POC. Of course, there's other POCs on the cast, but we really had that vibe, and we all discussed it. We've all brought it up at one point in the game, but we haven't really had that sit down all together and say, this is what we are and this is how we're going about things. So I feel like, unfortunately, there were some priorities with the people that I wanted to work with that were a little bit higher with the other people and not with me. So when it came to like me wanting to work with HCC and Jodali, and the vote coming down between me and Jodali, I feel like unfortunately HGC's and Jodali's relationship was stronger than mine at the time because I am just now meeting HGC, and I don't know if this is true, but I just got this huge like connection right off the bat between him and Jodali. So I was like, in my mind I was SOL, but HGC and I loved HGC, and we were having so many great conversations, and he flat out told me that he was never going to vote for me. And I in my head I'm like, HGC, like, please keep me versus Jodali. And he's like, don't worry, honey, like, I love you. You're not going anywhere. Fast forward. But I knew where it came from. It's all game and nothing but personal. I don't take it personally. I just found it funny watching the episode. I was like chuckling the whole time because they got me good, sis.
I was gonna, yeah, that was what my next question was. You know, that relationship between HGC and Jodali, and then that conversation that you have with HGC, you know, the one-on-one, and then he pans to the camera and it's like, you know, yeah. So that's awesome. It was a great moment. The last thing that I wanted to ask you though, having seen the episode now, and seeing the scene where there's people still like undecided going into the vote, and the scene where, you know, Kennedy has this, yeah, has this choice.
I know where you're going
with
this.
With the bracelets, the two different colors. What did you think of that? Do you think that that's like accurate, like it was that close at that point, or do you think that people had their minds made up?
Okay, I have multiple perspectives on this. So the in-game perspective, after being voted out and hearing about what happened and how it was supposedly have been decided between me and Jodali, I was kind of devastated. Not gonna lie, I was shook because I was this close to staying in a situation where honestly it was so random that had I stayed from the situation, I very much so feel like it wouldn't have hurt my game. I would have been able to brush this off and kind of build my relationships back and see what happened and see where my name came from and how to combat that. So knowing that my fate was essentially decided through rocks, basically rocks, or like a random draw, I was like, y'all are some shady bitches. Like, y'all say y'all love me, but y'all flip the coin gate, and I went home. No, but then I thought about it, and I looked at it from a game's perspective, and I looked at it specifically through Kennedy's perspective. And knowing Kennedy, she was probably thinking, Kris is a ally of mine. I know that he wants to work with me. I potentially want to work with him. But Jodali, I don't know her exact relationship with Jodali, but I think that she is such a good social threat and game player that she understands that Jodali is also a person that she could work with in the game, and kind of I don't know, like she would gain some sort of capital with either. So she ultimately decided to do the draw thing, and that's what happened. But deep down inside, I also want to say that I think she wanted to get revenge because I voted her out in Bigger Brother, and this is not confirmed news. Don't take this to Orgo drama. This is just Kennedy, I love you. If this is not the case, I don't know. This is what I was thinking in the game, is that she did that because she needed a reason to take me out, and she didn't want kind of like the blood on her hands with everyone else, and kind of left it up to fate and drew my color.
This is me just like thinking in my head, like, is this a possibility? Do you think that even though it was random, right, the draw, that, she asks Erica, pick an
That's what I
arm.
was
Do you think
saying.
she
I was literally just saying like she was getting revenge because she. I think she even told me, I could have forgot, but I think Kennedy told me that, you know,
maybe a little switcheroo?
yeah, like exactly. Pick my right hand, and then she did. Oh, okay, Kris. Like, and it's so genius to think about that. So I thought about that during the game, and I said, if that were the case and Kennedy did that, one, I have a reason to be butthurt, but I'm over it because that was such a good move, because it not only gets rid of one of your targets if I was her target, and it's not being perceived to everyone else that you got rid of your target. Because once people start realizing that people are specifically playing the game to get rid of their targets, that's when that person becomes a target, if that makes sense. Like, say, like, consistently, I've gotten rid of, and this is just hypothetical, I've gotten rid of Zoe, Paul, and I don't know, HGC, and they were all my targets, and everyone knew that they were my target, and I got them out. Then I'd be the next target because I'm playing such a great game. So I feel like she really played a great card, if that were the case, so that she didn't get any blood on her hands. I'm not in the jury, so I can't talk the mess that I want to talk, and that's what it, that's how it went. So Kennedy, you're fierce.
If that was the case, and I will love to, when I interview Kennedy, to ask that specific question. I think that's one of those things that you just gotta tip your cap to.
Yeah, exactly.
So you leave, right? You're out 8-4, but this is in Ascendance. Usually, this round 3 is where the game really, there's a big move. History shows like this is where there's lines drawn. This is the first like non-unanimous vote. You have 3 people on your side here. Zoe, Jake, and Erica. So were you surprised to see that those were the 3 that voted to keep you? And were you mad at anybody that didn't?
In the jury house, I had a lot of time to ponder and reflect. Not in the jury house, in the elimination. I don't know what to call that house. The people where the eliminated players go. The house where the eliminated players go. In that house, I had a lot of time to ponder and reflect my game, and I was honestly shocked that finding out that Zoe voted for me, because I was actively kind of targeting her during round 2, just because I didn't know her. And at the end of round 2, because Zoe actually confronted me about targeting her. She was like, Kris, I heard that, my name came through this such and such and such and such. Are you like targeting me? And I said, no, I think maybe the information was misconstrued. All I said was, I don't know Zoe. Like, we haven't had a conversation. So I wouldn't mind if Zoe went, but I'm not actively like targeting her. Which was like a half lie, because that was part of my truth. But at the same time, I was actually saying I don't know Zoe. So if she left, like, I would be straight. And she was like, I understand, because I feel the same way. And so fast forward into round 3, she picks me first. So half of it, that's why I said, is this friendship or are you targeting me? Because she said that she wanted to work with me at the end of round 2. So I wasn't sure if this was like a sign of, oh, you and I are going to tag team this out, or I'm picking you first so I can lock in you as, the GOAT if we lose. So, seeing Zoe voting for me at the end, it furthermore confirms how dope of a person Zoe is, because she really is true to her word. And she brings nothing but good vibes and energy. So I really love Zoe. So at the time I was shocked when I saw her. And Jake, we were working together. We haven't had a lot of time to talk, but we were actually bunk buddies the first night of Ascendance before the game started. So there was kind of like a bunk bond that we had, and we kind of like told each other that we wouldn't like actively go against each other. And I've actually played one game with Jake before, even though we didn't work together at all. We had that also minor connection with us too. So it wasn't unbelievable, but I was also grateful for Jake's vote. And who was the last vote?
Erica.
Eric. Oh my gosh, poor Erica.
No surprise there, right?
She was going. I was like a little tear was in my eye when I saw Erica so like stressed out. Even though I don't want Erica to be stressed. I'm not saying I want Erica to be stressed, but seeing that she was going through it because I was like leaving, I was like, oh, Erica's so sweet. And so knowing that Erica voted for me to stay, I loved it. Now, for the people who didn't vote for me, that I was kind of shocked. First of all, I really thought me and Marvin were going to be more of a dynamic duo. I really wanted to work with Marvin. Unfortunately, I don't know what happened. But I just feel like maybe he saw me as more of a liability. I don't know. And he cut me off because he really is a calculative player, I've noticed. And so that's probably what happened. And Kennedy didn't vote for me either, and so both Kennedy and Marvin didn't vote for me, and those were the two people that were supposed to be my friends, and we're supposed to be all working together. But I digress. I was shocked, to say the least, to see them. Paul, I can understand not voting for me.
Yeah. So my last question to you, Kris, is what was your favorite part of the entire experience?
Meeting everybody. I know that sounds cliche, but like I got eliminated third, y'all. Like that is my favorite part of the game. I was in the elimination house, just vibing and chilling and experiencing everything. The rounds went so quick. It was only so we play. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this. I'm just gonna say that we played multiple rounds in one day, and I was eliminated on the very last challenge of day one of filming. So it was like kind of bittersweet because I felt like had I had an extra day, I would have been solid, because that's how that's the game player that I am. I'm kind of more of a slower burner than like high intensity play such a hard in your face game. So had I had the extra time and not been a grandma and went to bed at 11 p.m. because for future applicants of any LRG, and if you're sleeping over, sleep is for the weak. You get your sleep at home, okay? Like I went to bed and I found out I missed out so much I missed out on so many conversations, so much information, and all of this is behind the camera. So I wasn't expecting it. It was my first live, but literally a lot goes on behind the cameras, and you need to take advantage of that. So that's my little spiel on that. But my experience overall was pleasant because honestly, the whole cast of Ascendance, they're all great people. They all have their own unique personalities. I think we're fierce. I think this season is fierce. I'm super excited watching every single episode. And so just the experience overall, meeting a lot of the prod members were like from season 1. So it was really nice seeing the people that I didn't really know too well in person, but seeing them on my TV or phone was surreal to me. It was great. And meeting Nicole in person was fantastic. Meeting Papa in person was fantastic. I love him to death. So yeah, just meeting everybody. And I mean, most of everybody. There was a lot of org people that were even in the game that I got to see, like Jabbar. Jabbar's great.
Shout out
The list goes
Jabbar.
the list goes on and on. But yeah, the people is the like my personal best experience when it comes to playing Ascendance Live.
Perfect. So thank you so much, Kris, for coming on the pod and talking about your game. It's been awesome catching up and, you know, hearing about everything. And yeah, I appreciate you taking the time out of your night to get lost at sea with me, brother.
Of course. Oh my gosh, it's only been an hour. I feel like we're here for a long time. I mean, it was a long time, but like I just I just love talking anything Ascendant. So sorry if I rambled a bit. That's just where my mind takes me. But thank you for having me on the pod, and I love you guys. It was one more thing before we go. As I was watching the episode in the comments, I wasn't expecting to get so much like love in by people I didn't even know. Um, as I was being eliminated from Ascendance. And so I just want to say to people that liked me on the show and said all the like the nice things, shout outs to you, thank you. I was like getting teary. I was like, oh my god, like I didn't know I would be like well received or liked. It was my first experience doing this sort of thing, so I was kind of nervous. But yeah, thank you to any of my fans or the people that have watched and are currently making Ascendance Live greater each and every day, because that show deserves many accolades in the future.